Welcome back, Leap Enforcer Podcast, Episode 8. I'm Chris. I am the host. So we're roughly, what are we coming up on, 2 weeks since free agency started. We've had some big names move. We've had some big names not move. Some of the big names that have moved. Metcalf to the Steelers. I didn't really see that one coming. Metcalf said he wanted a warm climate. He ended up in Pittsburgh with no quarterback. So that whole situation's kind of weird. You know, who's going to be his quarterback? They just paid him all this money and pretty good sized trade too. So we'll see what happens there. Debo to the Commanders. That was kind of interesting. I didn't feel like Washington gave up too much. I think that's a good fit for Debo, especially with Jaden Daniels. They're able to use Debo in so many different formations, different positions. I mean, they can run him out of the backfield. They can run him at the slot. They can run him outside at wide receiver, like outside. I don't know. He can play slot receiver. He can play running back. Like the guy's kind of like a jack of all trades. So I think he's a good fit for them. Also, seeing Cooper Kupp going to Seattle. It's kind of weird. I think he's from there, so I guess that kind of makes a little bit of sense. Going out there with Sam Darnold, so they're going to have a whole new offense as well. They got a couple good running backs, though, so they should be okay. I feel like they're going to be another fringe playoff team, though. They might be, 9-8, 10-7, something like that, fringe playoff team. Devontae to the Rams. I had a lot of my Green Bay people that were – it's kind of funny, though, when you talk about, like, some of the Green Bay fans. Some of you guys, man, oh, I want Devontae back. And then he doesn't come back, and it's like, oh, Devontae's washed. He's washed. Like, Devontae hasn't had a quarterback. I mean, he had a quarterback last year with Rodgers. Rodgers is a shell of himself. But before that, he had Aiden O'Connell with the Raiders. I think Devontae's 31, 32, something like that. I think he's 31. I think he's got a few years left in the tank. He's not a top-tier receiver, but he's got some of the best hands in football. He's probably still the best route runner in football. Devontae's never been the speed guy, and that's typically, the speed guys are the ones I feel like that tend to kind of like not have such a long career at wide receiver. The speed, that goes with Father Time. Father Time's undefeated. So I think that the speedier guys like the Tyreek Hills, like some of the guys that base their game on speed are the ones that don't have like the longevity at that position. But route running and hands, like you can't really teach. I mean, you could teach that, but a lot of that stuff is something that you can still do in your 30s. I mean, look at like some of your older guys. I mean, Keenan Allen's still playing well. D Hop is still playing pretty well. I mean, they're still, because they got hands, they know how to, run routes. So Devontae to the Rams, I mean, I kind of feel like it was like a trade-off. Like you got rid of Kupp, who I think is a year younger than Devontae, if I'm not mistaken. And he went to Seattle, and then you brought Devontae in with Nakua, and they brought back Stafford. So it'll be interesting to see. They got a couple solid running backs. They have a hell of a young defense. So I do think the Rams are going to be good. Probably the team to beat in that division based on what's happened with Seattle. Arizona hasn't done enough, I feel like, to really make any change to their team. And then San Francisco, I mean, we'll get to San Francisco here in a minute. They are a shell of the team they were. But, and then you got a couple guys that didn't move. You got, Max Crosby, who everybody was rumored, he's coming to Green Bay, he's coming to Detroit, yada, yada. He's staying put. Money talks with him and Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett's staying put as well. Both those guys got paid. Both wanted to win. Both are not going to win. They're going to get paid instead. So I just don't see the Raiders, nor do I see the Browns being, any good in the next couple years. So at least they're getting paid, though. Another one was Fields to the Jets. That was a little interesting to me. I thought that with the Steelers being so like unknown with Russ and him kind of aging, you brought in Fields. You didn't really give him a lot of opportunity to play, but when he did, he wasn't terrible. I felt like Tomlin could have did a little bit with him. Then you got Metcalf, and Pickens is still there for right now. I know he's rumored to be possibly on the trade block coming up with the draft, But as of right now, you'd have Metcalf and Pickens, but they don't have a quarterback. So I just felt like, the deal Fields got, I think it was a 2-year 40, if I'm not mistaken. I think the deal was, it's kind of a go prove yourself type deal. That's why it was short term. I just think the Steelers should have stuck with him. I mean, he's going to the Jets, and I mean, we'll see how that goes. They got a new coaching staff, and they're kind of revamping too. Got rid of Rodgers. Who knows where Rodgers is going to go? So let's get into like some of the free agent like winners, in my opinion. I hate to admit this. I really hate to admit this. I think the two biggest winners in this year's free agency so far are Chicago Bears and the Washington Commanders, both NFC teams. One's an NFC North, division rival. We own the Bears. We have for years. I don't know what's going to happen though coming up with the Bears. I mean, they have had a very, very good free agency thus far, the last 2 weeks. Their entire interior offensive line is completely new. They have made some really, really good moves there. They have added they had Jonah Jackson, they had Joe Tooney. They've added a few guys right there on that offensive line. Then they added Drew Dahlman as well. So their interior is going to be able to protect Caleb a lot more. I think allowing him to be a little bit better with the ball and not having to run as much, although I feel like that's a lot of his game. But that interior line is going to be crucial for them. And then they've added, Grady Jarrett on the defensive side, Durham Smythe, and then they've added a couple solid wide receivers, not top tier, but middle tier receivers in Zacchaeus and Duvernay. Both those guys are solid. They can catch the ball. They're going to be good, pieces for Caleb Williams. I know Keenan Allen is still available. I don't know what they're going to do with him. Be interesting to see where he ends up. I mean, I know he's up there in age, but the guy can still catch. I mean, he's still a good route runner. He's still going to fight for the ball. So I think that's going to be an interesting, to see where he goes. I think with him signing those receivers, I kind of feel like Keenan Allen's gone at that point. I really feel like Keenan Allen should go back to the Chargers. Mike Williams did, and Herbert is familiar with him and Keenan Allen. So I don't know. We'll see where he goes. But Chicago and the Commanders both, I think, have had the best offseason. Commanders, I mean, where do you start with Washington? They have had, I mean, they traded for Debo to begin with. So after the Debo trade, they haven't really lost a lot either. Let me look. I got it pulled up. And then they traded for Laramie Tunsil, which I was shocked that the Texans let him go. I mean, he was a staple on that offensive line, and I don't know what their game plan is with that offensive line. The Texans have let multiple guys go on that line. So, but with the Commanders, I mean, they've retained Bobby Wagner, which was good. I mean, he's getting up there in age, but he's a hell of a linebacker. They retained Zach Ertz, which, Jane Daniels proved later in the season that he was extremely comfortable with him. They added Kinlaw. They've added Will Harris. They added a veteran receiver, Michael Gallup. He's going to essentially replace the Zacchaeus role, I feel like. But Gallup was good when he was in Dallas, when he actually was given an opportunity to play. If he just needs to stay healthy. So, again, I think your two winners are going to be Washington and Chicago as far as free agency. Diving into some of the losers, in my opinion, 49ers. I mean, the Niners have lost way too much. I mean, they've lost almost their entire team. It feels like. I think I seen this stat that it was like 12 of the 22 starters or something like that from the Super Bowl team are all gone now. They've just started cleaning house, and I think a lot of it has to do with, I think they're trying to, I mean, they got to free up enough money to pay Brock. Here's my thing with the whole Brock thing. Is Brock worth $50 million? So when you look at, I'm looking at this right now on who the 49ers is essentially lost by, either released or waived or whatever it may be. Javon Hargrave, Malik Collins, both defensive tackles, Leonard Floyd, defensive end, They have lost. Let me see. Aaron Banks. Aaron Banks came to Green Bay. They've lost Charvarius Ward, Dre Greenlaw. I mean, you just look through this, and some of these guys were pivotal parts of that playoff run, Super Bowl run. They didn't win a Super Bowl, but you're letting a lot of guys go, including Deebo Samuel. Brandon Ayuk's coming off of an injury. They had let Juszczyk go. They ended up bringing him back. McCaffrey's coming back from injury. So I don't know. Like, you let all these guys go for Brock. Here's the thing: is Brock worth $50 million if you don't have all these weapons? I wouldn't pay him $50 million. I mean, he wants to get paid like a top 5, I think, quarterback. I read you can't pay Brock that kind of money. In my opinion, I don't know. I don't give up all these players to pay Brock. I would have tried to trade him, maybe a sign and trade, something along those lines. But we'll see what happens. I'm going to dive into a couple hot takes, I think, and the Niners are one of those teams that I want to do a hot take on. So, excuse me. The other one is the Vikings. The Vikings, people are saying, oh man, they, giving them high grades as far as the free agency goes. I'm not. You let Sam Darnold go, great. I wouldn't have paid him. I think he got like a 110 for 3 years. So now you've ruled yourself out of the Aaron Rodgers sweepstakes or whatever you want to call it. They haven't really talked about Russell Wilson, so you're gonna roll with JJ McCarthy. I personally, I'm a Michigan guy. I don't think JJ McCarthy is like a legit NFL quarterback. I just don't. I think he was a solid college quarterback. But I mean, think about this. Harbaugh, one of the college games, I think it was against Penn State. One of the games, they wouldn't even let him throw the ball the entire half. You're going to tell me that you don't trust a quarterback in college to throw a ball against the college defense, but yet you're going to have him start for an NFL franchise that has Justin Jefferson, probably the best receiver in football, in my opinion. You got Hawkinson. They have Jordan Addison. I mean, they re-signed Aaron Jones. They traded for Jordan Mason. They have a lot of good pieces on offense. They made some moves on defense to strengthen their defense. But like, how do you expect to win with JJ McCarthy? I just don't see it happening. So these grades for like high grades for like McCarthy or for Minnesota, I just don't trust McCarthy. So long story short, I'm not going to dive into that too much more, but looking at the NFC North as far as free agency goes, because that's where my Packers are at, the Bears clearly have won free agency in the NFC North, in my opinion. I think Minnesota maybe, the moves they've made, I think have been a little bit better than Green Bay and Detroit. Detroit adding DJ Reed, I think, is going to be a massive, upgrade for them. I don't think a lot of people realize that, but I really do think that DJ Reed is a massive upgrade to what they had with Carlton Davis. It was one of the guys I really wanted Green Bay to go get, but, I don't know. I had high hopes for Green Bay this year to go out and do something in free agency after picking up McKinney and Josh Jacobs last year. But, we go get Aaron Banks. We go get Hobbs, corner from the Raiders. We ended up re-signing McManus, which we had to do. We re-signed McDuffie. We did lose a lot of pieces, though, that I wasn't too happy about. But Dillon kind of bothered me a little bit, but I understood it because you got Marshawn Lloyd coming back. Emmanuel Wilson played so well, and Jacobs is our dog. I mean, so that's 3 running backs that, you're not really going to keep a fourth. So TJ Slayton was one that I really wanted Green Bay to keep. He ended up going to, I think, the Bengals. But, like, with TJ Slayton, like, he was a run stopper. Like, he was a run stuffer. And, realistically now, what are we going to move Kenny Clark to that position? Kenny Clark hasn't played all that well, like, recently, like, in that position at the nose up front. Like, so, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. Slayton was such a big dude, clogged up the middle of the line. But, then we lost Josh Myers. Josh Myers' contract was a little bit head-scratching to me. I think he got 1 year, $3.5 million. I don't even know why Green Bay, why don't you just keep him at that point? He knows the team. He knows the system. He was an above-average center, in my opinion. and he's dirt cheap. I mean, you just gave um, Aaron Banks what, 77 million. You could have just gave Josh Myers 3.5 and then added Aaron Banks. But I think the Aaron Banks move, like, I get it. It could be a good deal for us because it seems like that offensive line salary keeps going up and up. A lot of the positions, same thing with wide receiver. So it could be a good deal for us, this year and next year if it pans out. I think that we just have to move. I think we're moving Elgin Jenkins to center, and then I think Sean Ryan gets the right guard position over Jordan Morgan. Jordan Morgan's coming off an injury. He was a rookie last year. It'd be a second year. We'll see how he comes back, and then Zach Tom's a staple at right tackle, and then I think that Rasheed Walker left tackle, and then Aaron Banks would start as well. So I think that's what the Packers are going to be moving forward this coming season. Detroit, I don't think made enough moves in my opinion, but we'll see with the trade deadline coming up. Brad Holmes likes to do things heading into the draft. I feel like so we'll see what happens, but. The NFC North, I hate to say this, but I think the Bears have had the best offseason by far. Minnesota, not enough moves, and I don't know what they're going to do at quarterback. Green Bay, I would give them a C. I mean, Bears, I'd give an A. Minnesota, I'd give probably C+. Packers, C-, and I would give the Lions probably a C-. I don't think either one of those teams have done enough. But again, we were the two, essentially fighting for that division. Well, I guess Minnesota was last year too, but I don't think they're going to be there with McCarthy. But anyways, on to what are the Packers going to do as far as in free agency with Jair? I don't know. Jair, they're talking about moving before the draft. Then they say that he's going to stay. He's going to go. He's going to stay. At some point, what are we going to do at corner? Our defensive ends, you were going to go get Myles Garrett. You didn't. You were going to go get Max Crosby. You didn't. Trey Hendrickson's still available, but he may sit out this year if he doesn't get, $30+ million a year. Okay, so what are we doing? We're going to roll with Van Ness. We're going to roll with Rashawn Gary, Kenny Clark up front. Where are we getting a pass rush from? Rashawn Gary's essentially, I don't think he's lived up to his contract. Again, but Van Ness, when does he start to play like a first-round draft pick? I don't know. Then when you look at corner, Ja, if we lose Ja, what do we have left? We have Nate Hobbs, who we just got. You got Valentine, who's okay. I mean, I would say he's young, but I would say he's slightly above average. Nixon, who I have no faith in Nixon. I just don't. And I think Kalen King, they're hoping that would step up a little bit. If we lose Jair, I think Kalen King's going to have to start stepping up. The other thing we did pick up was McCole Hardman. Hardman, I understand that's a very, from my understanding, it's probably a very team-friendly deal. I love the fact that he's going to come in and be kick return or punt return. Nixon fumbled in the playoffs right off at the kickoff, and it kind of screwed us. So I'm okay with Hardman coming in. I think that LaFleur can do some stuff with Hardman on the offense too, with his speed, because we don't really have any speed with Watson out. And going into the draft, what are we doing at wide receiver? I really think we need a veteran wide receiver. I know Keenan Allen is still out there. I know Diggs is still out there. Diggs is going to cost too much. But if we get a Keenan Allen, I would still be okay with that. Just a veteran receiver to kind of teach these young guys essentially how to play the position, properly. I kind of feel like Dobbs might be on the move. I hope not, but I kind of feel like Dobbs might be on the move. I don't know if he wants to be in Green Bay. It still would leave us with Reed and Bo Melton. We re-sign Malik Heath, Dontavian Wicks. I hope they can figure out something to keep Dobbs. I like Dobbs as a player. The concussions kind of scare me a little bit. But yeah, so that's kind of where we are in free agency right now. And I want to dive in real quick to going back to some of the Packer fans. Man, I am a diehard Packer fan. I am, and I have been for years. You guys, the whole Aaron Rodgers thing, I don't understand as a Packers fan how you can bash the guy. You may not like his personality, awesome. You may not like who he is off the field, that's great. The guy was, in my opinion, the absolute best quarterback ever in the Green Bay Packers. And I honestly have Rodgers as being one of the most talented quarterbacks ever, if not the most talented. He doesn't have the Super Bowls to show for it. He's only got one. We should have had a couple more. But at the same time, who do we surround him with? I mean, you give him, and I go back to the Brock Purdy thing. Like, you surround him with all that talent. Look how good Brock Purdy looks. Aaron Rodgers made a lot of guys look really, really good. A lot of those guys, when they went to other teams, they weren't even close to who they were with Green Bay. And I think there was a stat where he threw to one first round offensive player. I think that was Mercedes Lewis, if I'm not mistaken. It's just like, I don't know. They just never gave him anybody for the most part in Green Bay to try to go win another title. So the guys that are bashing Rodgers, like, Rodgers is one of my favorite players. Do I root for him anymore? I mean, I still hope he does well. I don't necessarily root for any other team, but you guys just bashing this guy like he's 41. No, he's not a top 5 quarterback. He's not a top 10 quarterback, but I would take him over half the quarterbacks in the NFL. So I still think the best fit for him is Minnesota. I know that Minnesota's out, but I think you bring him in there for a year. You teach, J.J. McCarthy how to play the position. I don't want to see him in Minnesota because I don't want to play him twice a year. It's still Aaron Rodgers. So you Green Bay fans, you can't be like a massive fan of Aaron Rodgers and massive fan of the Packers and then just bash this dude. Like, you guys did it. A lot of people did it with Favre, and then when Favre came back, everybody's like, oh, it's Brett Favre. Like, he's a Green Bay Packer, like, for life. Okay, let's just not bash Rodgers. That's my, 2 cents on that situation. So where does Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers go? It sounds like Aaron Rodgers is going to go Pittsburgh. Russell Wilson, I mean, I can't see Rodgers going to the Giants. Why? You got Malik Neighbors. They're not winning a Super Bowl now. I don't think any of the teams Rodgers could go to could win a Super Bowl right now. I think Pittsburgh would be really good if they keep Pickens. I know they're talking about trading Pickens. I know Green Bay is always in the mix, but right now they have Pickens and Metcalf. So, yes, you have a good offense. You still have Watt on defense. So you do have some pieces over there. I don't think they're Super Bowl caliber. Minnesota, yes. Russell Wilson, I think he just ends up wherever Rodgers doesn't. I kind of see him. I think he's a better fit in Pittsburgh. I mean, he already knows the system. He knows Mike Tomlin. He's played with Metcalf. His best years were with Metcalf and vice versa. And if you do bring back Russ, you might just want to bring Tyler Lockett with you because Tyler Lockett's a free agent too. So that would make the most sense. Tyler Lockett, Metcalf, Pickens. But again, Pickens might be on the move. So anyways, that's my kind of tidbit on those. I think I would like to see Rodgers hang it up, but I don't think Rodgers is going to hang it up. I think he's just too damn stubborn. I think, and there's still some money left on the table. And I don't think he wants to go out like he did with the Jets. I think he wants to go out in the playoffs with a legitimate shot in his mind to go to a Super Bowl. So, a couple hot takes. First hot take. If I'm Minnesota, I am calling the Chargers, and I am offering J.J. McCarthy and a draft pick, first round, second round, for Herbert. It's a hot take. I don't think this happens. But Harbaugh loves McCarthy. Justin Herbert, in my opinion, is one of the most talented quarterbacks in the league. Again, you took a lot of his players away from him, between Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Eckler. They do have McConkey, but you took a lot of, weapons away from him. And I just think that Herbert, with the right people around him or in the right position, could be a top 5 quarterback. I don't think the Chargers make that move. But Harbaugh, I mean, he's not your atypical coach. He does some wild stuff. So why not offer it? JJ in a second, or JJ in a first? I mean, it might be steep, but JJ in a second for Herbert. The Chargers are essentially in a rebuild, I feel like, right now. I mean, they're a solid team, but they need quite a few pieces to move toward a Super Bowl. They lost Bosa. They did re-sign Khalil Mack, but those guys are both aging. So that's my first hot take. Second hot take. If I'm San Fran, like I said earlier about Brock Purdy, I would try to move him. I would try to see what you could get in the draft, maybe a top 10 pick for Purdy. I don't think he's worth that, but you might get one of these desperate teams like the Giants or the Titans or the Browns that are willing to make that type of move to go, because I think the quarterback class that's coming out, I don't think is a top tier quarterback class. I mean, I'll get into that more in another podcast because I don't want to make this one too lengthy. But I think that a lot of people think that Brock Purdy is a proven player. So a lot of times those type teams that haven't had a quarterback in a while, or in a bad position quarterback wise, they may go make that move and go after Brock Purdy. So my other hot take would be Aaron Rodgers to San Fran on a 1-year, 2-year deal, and maybe try to bring back a couple other pieces. Not bring back, but add a couple other pieces, that would make them a contender. They do have still some good core players there. If Ayuk can come back healthy, if McCaffrey can come back healthy, they got Juszczyk coming back. They still have George Kittle. They still have some pieces on defense. So, again, Rodgers wants to be in a win-now situation, and I think Rodgers to San Fran makes a lot of sense, but I don't think it'll happen because of Brock Purdy. But I also wouldn't pay Brock Purdy $50 million a year, or $40 million a year for that matter. But we'll see what happens. But anyways, yeah, if you made it this far, I appreciate you guys watching. I'm still kind of messing with this new setup, so camera is a little bit different, or camera's the same. I use this a different type of mic cable, and I don't know. I'm kind of playing with this, so if you guys shoot me a message and let me know how it sounds, how it looks, leave me a comment, follow me, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. I'm on X. I'm not on there too much, but I'm on X. I'm on Spotify. So, again, I'm just a guy with an opinion, and I appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you guys next time. Until then, go Pack, go.